afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Q3 public session of the RC West Oversight Committee meeting. My name is Elena Kopolov-Alford, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the call today. If you'd like to get to this presentation, you can go to the kaiso.com calendar and go into the calendar event, and this presentation will be listed there. Or if you have access to the RC portal, both presentations are available there as well. Some housekeeping reminders before we get started. This call is being recorded for informational and convenience purposes only. You can request permission from RC West before reprinting any related transcriptions. And the materials here on the new updated website are in slightly a different spot. If you go to kaiso.com, go to products and services, and then RC West, or from the homepage, if you scroll all the way down, there's also a link there directly to the page. To raise your hand, first make sure that the participant and chat panels are open. They're on the bottom right of your screen, and then you'll be able to see attendees, you'll be able to see presenters, and you'll be able to put questions into the chat. If you connected to the audio through your computer, use the call me option. You can select the raised hand icon at the bottom of the participant panel. If you dialed in outside the WebEx, you can press *3 to get into the question queue. And please always remember to state your name and affiliation before making your comment or asking a question. If you need technical assistance during the meeting, Silas is our event producer, and you can send them a chat, and you can send your questions in the chat to me or to all panelists to ask the question. For our agenda today, we're going to be starting with the vote, and I'm going to hand it over to Chris Hoffman and Tricia to cover that. Tricia's going to go over the onboarding status. Then we're going to go to the operations updates, working group updates, then future agenda items, and then move over to public comment before we adjourn the session. So here, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Hoffman for the vote.
Trying to come off mute. Thank you, Elena. Appreciate it. Tricia, so do we want to go through this with the 3 nominees for the 2 positions?
And I would like to note here that the absentee votes that we've received since we put the slides together a couple days ago, this has gone up to 22 entities that have submitted their votes through that link.
Okay.
Elena, can you go forward one slide real quick, just to kind of remind everybody for the process. And then, so we have 22, and we need a total of how many for quorum?
We are at quorum. We needed 21. We needed 50% of our 42. So we're at technically at quorum.
Okay, that's good. But we could collect votes then from additional entities who are here that did not vote remote. Do you have the roll call handy to capture for anyone that didn't send in through the survey?
Yeah, Silas, if you go to the next page, all the missing votes we have are there on page 7, and I can pull it up on my side as we go through. If somebody wants to call them out, I can mark them on my.
Yeah, no problem.
And then
sorry, Elena, go ahead.
I just realized we don't have a slide showing who the options are. So I think if you want to cover that, then I'll just have my list on the back end.
Yeah, you betcha. So 3 nominees for the 2 positions. We're looking for the most votes to become vice chair and then vice chair. One of the candidates, Chris Sanford, has already served as the vice chair, so he's only eligible for the chair. We have Ashley Kelly from APS, Chris Sanford from BPA, and Daniel Copps from Pacific Corps. And with that, okay, this is a little awkward. I'm sorry. Are we thinking that we're gonna?
That's okay.
Call each name?
Yeah. So like starting with City of Reading, if you're on the call, we need your vote for chair and we need your vote for vice chair.
Are the attendees able to unmute, or are they all unmuted?
You can raise your hand. I think if we ask who's here from the city of Reading, if they raise their hands, then Silas can unmute them.
And just as a reminder for the attendees, the raise hand icon is in the participants panel. If you open your participants panel, it's going to be right at the bottom.
Okay, is there anyone in attendance from City of Reading? Please raise your hand. Okay. If I've gone past you and you're still figuring out how to raise your hand, you can still raise it after the fact and just let us know who you're with. Or actually, this is not that big of a list. If you see your entity listed here, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll just go through the hands in order. That might be faster than going one by one.
Okay, we've got a couple hands up in the queue. First, M. Brown, your line is unmuted. You can go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Marcus Brown with BHE Montana. Am I casting my vote now, or I'm just acknowledging that my name was on that we're on the list for BHE.
Yeah. So we just need your vote for chair and for vice chair. And you guys technically have 2 votes because you've got 2 RC contracts. Right, so you have 2 votes for each position.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Sorry.
And also, if the other option is if you're not able to raise your hand, or sorry, Marcus, for anybody else, you can put it into the chat panel and just say who you're with and your vote for both chair and vice chair. I can also drop the survey link in the chat too. That is helpful.
John Nierenberg, I see your name in the chat. I've unmuted your line, so you are also able to cast your vote.
Okay. I would like to vote for Chris Stanford for BPA for chair and Ashley Kelly, yes, for vice chair.
Thank you so much. Okay, if we can go to Patrick Powers.
Yeah, Patrick Powers, Northwestern Energy. We'd like to cast our vote, Chris for chair and Daniel for vice chair.
Thank you so much. Okay, I've got you. And I'm sorry, did I miss, Marcus, do you want to submit it in the chat, or should I do you want me to send you that link separately so you can see the options?
I'm sorry. Can you send me the link, please?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Thank you.
Okay, we're at quorum, so I don't know if we want to keep going and then folks can still just put their responses in the chat, or if I add them into the link too. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of scanning through the list of attendees, and I'm scanning through the list of companies kind of side by side, and it seems like most others are covered already with their votes. I might be missing someone in my scan. Well, IID, I see IID on the line, and IID, it doesn't look like you've cast your vote. But otherwise, yeah, you could, there you go, Paul.
Yeah, I just submitted my vote, and that was about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, thank you. All right, and if we missed anyone else, then you can still do the survey, or you can put it in the chat. But yeah, since we're at quorum, I think we can probably move along. So, I mean, Elena, we can tally up and then report out the results here by the end of the meeting, just so we can confirm the count.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, Silas, if we go to the next page.
Okay, so really briefly, one of the things that we need to do in accordance with the tariff and our business practice manual requirements is provide updates for onboarding activities. So wanted to report we did complete the grid TOP onboarding into CAISO BA area for the 10 West Link project back in June. So all the milestones were completed successfully, the lines in service. So we're progressing there. Can you go to the next slide, please? The other project that's in progress right now is another TOP onboarding. Thank you everyone for your WIDSA approvals. We've been able to start provisioning access for Ellis Power Grid to the RC tools so they can be working through their readiness processes. Right now, we are working through some network model and ICCP data items, discussing procedural items with Ellis Power Grid and Pacific Gas and Electric. So we are targeting completion of this project by the end of the year, so we can provide an update at the Q4 meeting. I don't know if there are any questions, but that's it for my onboarding update. Okay, thank you.
Trisha, do we go to the next slide? So we'll go over through the RC West operations update. I think Tim Beach is up first.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. A couple things here quick. Samson's on vacation, so I'll be covering all the data, and Kathy will do the procedure update. If we go to the next slide. So looking at our EEAs this year, we're up to 42. And if you look across to 2020, 47. So you may think, wow, we're on track for a year like 2020, which is a very hot year, and there's some load shedding, that kind of thing that year. What I want to draw the difference is that we didn't have an EA watch in 2020, which we do have in 2024, and that's 25 of those. So if we really take those out of the equation, we're looking more like 2021 right now. Most of the EA watches are for getting emergency assistance from BAs that require any request for emergency assistance for those BAs to be in an emergency. These statistics were gathered on Monday. Since then, we've had two more EA watches and an EA3. Those were both with Sonance. One was both the watches were for emergency energy from CAISO, and the 3 was for arming firm load in replace of contingency reserve. And also, I want you to remember that Sonance does have a stricter requirement for reserves than we do here in NERC. They have a stronger requirement, but nevertheless, when they arm firm load, that means they're one capacity contingency away from shutting low. We put them in an EA3. We also did set a new, not a new RC West load, but WEC set a new peak load for the Western Interconnection, a historical peak of 167.9 gigawatts. So pretty heavy as well. Our peak for the year is 128.4 gigawatts. So about 2 gigawatts off our all-time record. It was a very hot July. It's fortunate, and we did see heat across the Western Interconnection. However, it seemed like when Pacific Northwest was hot, California was off its peak. It was a little bit cooler than its hottest period, and then vice versa. So there was some ample capacity that could be shared across the different regions in the West. So a very good year so far, and that's where we sit. If we could go to the next slide, please. A few things. The Winter Storm Heather, that's the MLK weekend. We had some lessons learned out of that. One of them was getting greater visibility into the Pacific Northwest gas situation there. We have become not a formal signature to the agreements, but a participant in their conference calls. So when the Northwest Mutual Assistance Agreements or the Western Region Mutual Assistance Agreement activate, we'll be on those conference calls, mainly for information gathering. If there's any direction we want to point, we'll work with the BAs that are participants in those calls to do that. If we wanted to, encourage shifting of generation from one area to the other, we'll work with the BAs to do that. We won't do that direction on the calls. So that was a great process to become involved, and hopefully it won't be enacted very often, but we will be participating in that going forward. Next slide, please. And we did have our RC West daily condition status go active in June. Talked about this in May, and we do look at the D+4 to D+7 as a trigger, and then as we get closer, D+1 and to 2 as well, and certain wildfire impacts will also trigger our status. The status is shared on our RC daily report, and if we flip that to the next slide, please. Here's an example of the day that we had peak load. So you'll see it's orange. RC West forecasted a load of 98% of its all-time peak in the D+1, D+2. And we had 3 or more BAs in one region. We have a north, central, and south region in the 98% of their ambient temperature historicals. So that's what triggers us into an orange for those cases. Prior to that, walking into the July, we were in the yellow condition. In the D+4 to D7 status. Again, this is on your RC daily report, which is posted to the portal every night. Go to the next slide, please. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy.
Sorry about that. I was double muted. This is Kathy Fernandez, coming to you with procedure updates here. On the first slide, I have upcoming procedure changes. So these are changes that are going to be published within the next short term. We had scheduled to publish RC 670 and RC 670A. That's the PRC 2 procedure and DDR list attachment. I haven't received full internal approval on these yet, so I believe they'll be published within the next week, probably next Thursday, which would be the 29th. These are being updated criteria of nameplate MVA versus megawatt and EMS model and various other edits for clarification, included Talon and Northwestern Energy under operationally affected parties that this is shared with. On PRC 670A, we updated operationally affected parties that it's now being shared with the actual affected parties only, which includes the generator owners, transmission owners that are listed in the list. And we added the TOGO contact column to reflect distribution contacts, just to be more clear there. We have RC 520, which should also be publishing just prior to or on 8/29. That's a new section 3.4 being added for partial degradation of ICCP data impacting IROL monitoring included. We have the RC 410, 430, and 460F, the 3 plan review checklists, which are being updated, and those are expected to publish on October 1st. They are still available in the RTWG meeting file under the procedure review folder if you want to take a look at those ahead of time, but those will be published and effective on 10/1. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, here we have recently published procedures. On 8/15, we published RC 110, communication protocols for annual review, updated communication protocol in section 3.2. We updated RC 420, event reporting, updating, noting that RCs will notify our JIC of reportable events instead of MRTO and submit OE 417 reports as needed. We added EEA watch to events that require reporting. We updated RC 520, loss of monitoring and analysis, updating NERC standard IRO 8 version references. We updated an RC West procedure reference and a couple of minor NERC standard references. Let's see, we updated RC 9020 on August 1st. Just a minor edit. We updated RC 9040 on August 1st as well. We replaced all references of Comanche Unit 1 with Comanche Unit 3 due to retirement of Comanche Unit 1. We updated RC 9260 with we published the initial procedure developed in coordination with CAISO and NVE. And then back on 7/25, we published RC 9520, updating Table 2 rating based on LA's information. On 7/11, we updated RC 420, RC 9110, RC 9120, and RC 9240. For RC 420, we added RC reporting requirements for other /newsworthy events to the appendix and related language in section 3.2. The other updates were minor due to FAC 14 changes. And then for the 9240, the Bonanza area, that was just a periodic review. Any questions on any of this so far?
Kathy, Tim here. I'd just like to add some clarification in case some people are wondering.
Sure.
On the EA watch, we've added that to event reporting and 420. You'll see that a couple times here on this chart. That's the JIC is our Joint Incident Command. That's an internal reporting thing. It does not get reported out to WEC or NERC. So it's just part of our emergency process as emergencies start, and if they continue to deepen, then we start setting up an emergency process and teams within RC West. So just wanted to let you know what that is and make sure that it wasn't being confused with reporting to regulatory agencies. That's not a requirement, and we don't report those EA watches.
Thank you, Tim. I apologize for missing that one, but no, that's good information there. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. I have a little bit more. Okay, and then these last few were published, the first three here, published on July 1st, RC 9230, 9540, and 9550. Those, let's see, 9230, we replaced existing step 2 mitigation step with Copperfield RAS verbiage. And then in RC 9540, we updated sections 3, 4.3, 4.4, 5, and 6 per IID's S-line project and El Centro 230, 92, number 5, bank energization. And then in 9550, we updated sections 4.3 and Appendix A for the same project. And then for RC 320 and RC 410, those were published and effective on June 15th. section 3.3 of 320, we added language for condition status indicator in the RC daily report and a policy for RC management to initiate conference calls with entities when extreme weather is forecasted for the next day. And then prior to this call, VAs may be requested to provide forecast information. And then in RC 410, we added additional criteria for RC declaration of transmission emergency unplanned load loss for next contingency. So that is all I've got. If there aren't any questions, I will turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathleen. It looks like we've got Lucas and Keel up with RC metrics from Q2 2024.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lucas Rasmussen. I'll be presenting the next few slides on a few SC and security analysis data. Kyle is, I don't believe he's here right now, so I will be presenting these slides. Next slide, please. So this table is showing the residual errors by month for line megawatt flow. You can also see that these residuals are split up by voltage level. Over the year-long trend, we don't see too much of a difference between the trend line. It's relatively flat with no drastic differences by voltage level. We do see that it's slightly higher this June, but one thing to consider is that a portion of these measurements are considered anomalies in our system, so they don't negatively affect our solution quality. They do provide an opportunity of identifying these residuals and reducing those counts. One of the things that we've been focused on is strengthening our telemetry mapping and residual mitigation processes to look forward to reducing the counts of these. So next slide, please. So this slide is showing the count of real-time contingency analysis, non-converged contingencies in 5-minute intervals. We do have 10,000 contingencies solving every solution. For the most part, you can see that the trend for this year in black and the trend for the previous year in blue. And the trend's looking relatively similar between this year and next year. We don't have as much variability. As you can see, the previous springtime last year had a big spike. So we've mitigated some of that, that dynamic variability this year. And we are, in May of this year, we've been applying improving regulation on buses with the parameter data. So we've applied some changes in May that's reduced the count for June. So we're continuing to improve regulation on these buses and to do some work such as changing our forecast weights on equipment such as loads, and hopefully that improves the ability to solve with megavar flows at these lower kV buses. Next slide. I believe I will be handing this off to someone from the OE group.
I think the slide is Ryan.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Ryan from Real-Time Engineering Group. On behalf of my manager, she is sick today, so I present the data accuracy for this quarter. We see slight improvement if you compare to next year, but it's still ongoing work to work with TUP on the modeling as well as the outage process issue identified through D1 and D2 timeframe. So hopefully ultimately will improve the accuracy on a regular basis. So this slide is just showing anything showed up in real time we didn't identify in the day-ahead time frame. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
Hey, this is
Okay,
Rachel.
Lucas, I think this one is back to you. Oh,
I can
go ahead,
cover
Rachel.
this slide unless Tim, if you want to speak to it. I'll cover it. So for the RC metrics for Q2, for the city issue resolution progress, we show here the number of opened cases, the number of closed cases, as well as the average business days to close. The line graph with regards to time with CAISO support is currently being developed with the internal team and is still getting worked on. And then number of open and closed cases don't change, but the other numbers can change as cases get closed from previous months. Next slide, please.
I think Rachel, that should be me. I'm hoping. Next slide, please. Okay, it is me. Good afternoon, folks. This is Raja Tapatobala, Director of Operation Engineering Services here at CAISO RC West. So today I have two updates, two major work that RC West is undertaking. Obviously, the first one is the FERC 881 ambient register rating and dynamic line rating process. I know it's going to be the same update that I have been giving at working groups. We have a couple of stakeholder groups that we have been participating. Most of the TOPs here participating. So you might have seen the same slides. Next slide, please. So this is more from the project timelines. So I know most of you guys know we have split this overall work, overall compliance effort into 3 different tracks. Track 1 is the real-time reliability applications. So this one, when we are done with this effort, hoping here pretty soon, the TOPs that have the real-time ratings, ambient register ratings, are whatever ratings. At the end of the day, dynamic line ratings in your real-time processes, right? In the state estimation, contingency analysis, you should be able to send those through ICCP to us, RC West, and we can start using them in our EMS, RTCA, and HANA applications. So I know we have been working, especially Cyril, our SME, has been working with you folks, creating the mappings, because which we need mapping so that our systems can communicate with your systems. I think some of the TOPs here already work with Cyril. So anybody else that has not worked, definitely reach out to Cyril or me. We can start that work and set up the mappings. So when our tools are ready, and you guys can then start shipping those ratings to us, and we can start using. That is a track 1. And the track 2, I know there's a lot of different things in the track 2 from a getting ready point of view, but the main objective of the track 2 is develop this look ahead application that to receive all the 240 hours of look ahead ratings from each of the TOPs across the RC West footprint. Right, and that process we have contracted with OATI to develop their WebLineR product. It's not a full-blown product yet, but they're going to make that happen to us in the sense they have started working on those. The functional specification has been finalized here just today. And here pretty soon, by another couple of weeks, we should be able to a point where the teams should be able to actually share that with you folks as well. So from an API specifications, whatnot, and then once you guys get access to that, you can start developing your side of the tools. And at some point, either early 2025, you should be in a position to send. We should be in a position to receive, and I'm hoping, yeah, you guys should be in a position to send those ratings, the look ahead ratings. So with that, right, when we are ready in Q1, Q2 2025, and technically, if you are able to send those ratings to us, the look ahead ratings, think that should fulfill your compliance obligations from a track to from a sending the look ahead ratings to RC. Now, track 3 is where both the RC West as well as the CAISO is going to use those ratings that are coming in and making changes to our downstream applications and use those ratings inappropriately based upon the timelines, right? Because at the 240 hours, that is roughly 10 days. So it does impact a lot of CAISO applications. From an RC West point of view, right, it impacts our short-term outage study process as well as our D+2 and D+1, the look-ahead reliability studies that RCS performs, and you call OPA studies, and we post the results to the RC portals, right? So those applications, as well as outage studies, will get be impacted by this process. So we need to make changes to all those tools. And what we are finding, obviously, there's a EDAM effort that CAISO has undertaken. That EDAM right now is planned to be spring 2026. So with that, and there's some constraints, there's no way we can fully be compliant by July 2025 with respect to the 881. So we need to go to FERC and ask for an extension when we were able to be fully compliant. What does that mean, right? What does that mean to you folks? I mean, again, as long as you can send the ratings when we have the webinar, I think that should be enough from your compliance point of view. Then at that point, it falls in our hands. And if we need to delay some parts of application, we're going to go to FERC and ask for an extension. So I'm going to take a minute here and see if there's any questions. Right, we're working internally what those extension will look like. So once we have more information and once we are ready to go to FERC, we're definitely going to share with this team what the timelines, what the new timelines are, what the phases are, how we're going to be compliant with, when we're going to compliant, when we're going to be compliant with which part of the application. Okay, if there's no questions, I can move on to the next slide. So this is another effort, the big effort that RC West is undertaking along with this PPE. This is the ECC Enhanced Curtailment Calculator expansion. So I got a couple of slides for people that are not aware of what this effort is, but for the people that are fully aware of this, this is more information for you folks. But yeah, go next slide, please. So in a nutshell, this ECC expansion effort is trying to implement a flow-based congestion management, flow-based congestion management on all SOLs and IRLs across the Western interconnect, right? Ultimately, that is the goal. So what does that mean, right? It's based upon real-time flow, real-time impacts, and again, we are envisioning it to be a RC-led process. So what does that mean, right? We need to again, this is a long-term process, right? We need to come up an agreement what those constraints are, what the local constraints are, what the constraints that are across the seams that are being impacted by multiple TOPs, multiple markets, right? So we need to define all those things, and we'll definitely work with you folks and come up with that agreement at some point. What does that mean? What does that mean, RC-led process? But right now, this is how we are envisioning. RC will be able to use this tool and try to find a way of solving this overloads across these SLs, IRLs. So it's going to be, we are hoping it will be a standardized curtailment methodology. What does that mean? Everybody agrees to it. Everybody across the Western interconnect agrees to it. And the same methodology will be used for all the constraints. It doesn't matter which RC, it doesn't matter which market, it doesn't matter which type of way are BA is providing the relief. We're hoping it's a standard methodology that will be agreed upon. So in a sense, there will be a tag curtailment, as well as the big component is going to be gen to load relief obligations. This is a new term that we are using, GTL, right? At the end of the day, it's a balancing areas native generation. What does it mean, right? Generation that is within the balancing area serving their own load, right? You serve your own load, you have an impact across constraints. You have impacts in your BA, you'll have impacts on neighboring BA, right? Depending upon how big the BA is, right? So that's what the GTL terminology, right? Historically, right now, I know the UFMP process, right? It doesn't touch the Gen 2 load. It only touches some of the tag curtailments, not a full blown as this step, this whole expansion process is looking at. In the big difference is right now the UFMP process only curtails tax up to 10%, and this process is envisioning down to 5%. So that's going to be a big change. And then obviously the current UFMP does not touch the Gen 2 load. Next slide, please. So again, this is more information what the GTL look like, right? Again, it's you account making sure your own generation serving your own load. If there's an imports, the imports will be calculated as part of the tags. If it's a imports using the dynamic schedule, that megawatt is be calculated using tag as well, right? So there's different ways you can account. And then after that, it's your own load serving your own generation, then that is the impact calculated. Next slide, please. So this overall, we're looking at a two-step approach. I mean, there's a white paper that that has been agreed upon. It went through multiple stakeholder process in the sense RC committees, and also we went to WEC, RRC to present it. And overall, we get a good feedback, and everybody that needs to approve from an RC's point of view has approved this process. And now there's two steps in that. One is benchmarking the existing ECC model and also benchmark the constraints, right? So that's the big effort that we are undertaking. The other one is as I mentioned, the standard methodology, the curtailment methodology. So that has to be approved through a NASB business process. NASB business process. What does that mean, right? It's a voluntary process that everybody across the Western Interconnect can participate in. So we'll go with the proposal to the committee there, and then it has to go through the process. And once it goes through that, it gets approved. Then at that point, it can be implemented into these tools and be utilized. And we're a little bit far away from that. We're planning to go to that NASB at sometime in Q4 2024. So SPP and RCWest are been working biweekly calls between us to determine what it would look like, what the SAR, the SAR will look like for this new requested standard. So once we get more information before we go to the NASB, we're going to share more information with you folks and present that information to you as well. But the biggest help that we need from you folks is on the step one. I have a couple of slides to talk more. What is that benchmarking effort? And we definitely need your support there. Next slide, please. So, right, as I mentioned, the step one, the benchmarking, the reason we're trying to do that is we wanted to get to a point where the curtailment methodologies goes through NASB process and gets approved. By that time, we have a tool that is calculating the megawatts accurately, calculating the impacts accurately. So our goal is, right, with the tool should be in a place where everything has been fixed, all the modeling issues, all the calculation issues, and develop a benchmarking criteria and work with the TOPs across different RCs, and everybody agrees that this tool is providing the right results. And then after that, the curtailment methodology gets approved, and you get that curtailment methodology and actually add on to the this process. Then you have a process that is equitable to everybody, that is validated by everybody, and providing the right curtailments for everything across tags, across Gen 2 load impacts, right? You have a tool that can provide the right relief and equitable relief for everybody. And we are hoping that will help us address any concerns from anybody that this is doing more for somebody, this is curtailing somebody's transactions more than others, right? So that's what we're trying to eliminate. So the primary goal is, right, we will compare the real-time flows on the constraints and also how the web ECC tool calculating impacts. So what does that mean, right? the existing model it's provided by RCOS. So there's some concerns from SPPs, TOPs that they don't get an opportunity to fix to improve the model. So we're trying to eliminate that. Hey, it's an open process. We'll make these models available to everybody. Look into it's already available. We're just trying to make sure that hey, it's a documented way that they have access to that. Any concerns about network issues in the model, modeling issues in the model, that will be fixed. Obviously, we'll look at the benchmarking that shows the calculation issues, and we'll fix all those things and fix any of the phase shifter modeling. And there's a lot of pieces in this, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of different pieces in this tool. There's a lot of calculations, a lot of impacts, and you go through all those things and come up with an agreement that, yep, a criteria that says this tool is providing right results will achieve the success. Next slide, please. So one of the big thing that we are defining for this effort is unaccounted flow. So what does that mean, right? So there's a difference between unaccounted flow, right, than UFMP process. So this is right unscheduled flow, right? There's a huge difference between that. What does that mean, right? So unaccounted flow in a way, it's a simple math in the sense you have the flows that are flowing out the line. And now on top of that, you try to estimate what are all the impacts that are impacting that constraint, right? You have the tag impacts, you have the dynamic schedule impacts, you have the gen to load as we just talked in the prior slides, and then you have area controller impacts, the phase shift impacts, right? And then obviously DC line impacts. You add all those impacts together. If your calculations are pretty close, right, these impacts should be somewhat closer to the flows, the real-time flow, or a contingency flow on that line, right? So that is the assumption because these models are estimated models. So if your calculations are anywhere close, if you take multiple constraints across the system, right? If you just take one constraint, you might get lucky and right, you might get lucky. Yep, everything is good on that line, but you don't want to do that, right? You want to pick up constraints across the system, across the Western interconnect, right? And then showcase that all these impacts that are being calculated, if you sum it up for different seasons or different time periods, they're pretty close to the flows on the line, then that validates that your modeling assumptions, your methodology assumptions, your calculations are pretty close, valid, that it's providing the right results that are close to the flows. Then you have a tool that everybody agrees is providing the right results, right? So that's where we want to get. So we'll share more once we get to a point where we have more metrics. What does the metric will look like? We will share with the TOPs. But ultimately, we need to get to a point where we collect that constraints, what constraints we want to model. Samson and me discussed what constraints we'll need to have, and obviously I'll work with Tim here, and we'll come up with the initial list, and then after that we can come up with you guys and then agree upon what those constraints are that we want to benchmark, at least from an RCS point of view. And we expect SPP is going to do the same thing, other RCs are going to do the same thing, and collect that information and start providing results, right? So and again, as we go into this process, into the benchmarking effort, we want to kick off here pretty soon. Once we do that, as we get more information, we'll definitely share with you folks. And if you get more charts, we'll share with you folks to see where this tool is headed. Next slide, please. So I'll take a stop here and see if there's any questions from anybody about this overall ECC expansion effort. I think one more thing that I didn't mention is ultimately the way I am looking at it is if we get to a point where we have a tool that is calculating accurate results and identifying the right sources of the impacts, right? Who's causing the impact on a constraint with this benchmarking effort. If the NASB effort is taking time to get it in, right? It's a slow process. We'll try to rush it up, but still a slow process. We will want to get a point where we can use this tool to improve our existing operating procedures. What does that mean, right? So if you are able to agree that this tool is calculating the right results and right impacts for everybody, and it shows up what is the impacts, what tags, what gen to load, what is causing the impacts on a constraint, that should enable the TOPs to agree upon a better agreement to resolve the operational issues. In the meantime, we have this NASB effort gets implemented. Any questions? If not, it's back to Tim Beach.
Actually, I think we're going to turn it back to Tricia for now.
We have no hands in the queue. We do have the voting results ready. Let me share that presentation. Silas, would it show for me to be able to share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to share it, you just have to go down to the share button at the bottom center of your screen to share that.
Oh, I emailed it over. I thought it would be loaded in here.
Right, I passed you. I'm sorry, I passed you the presenting rights. So I'm just going to take them back real quick and I'll bring them up and then I'll pass back to you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, WebEx has given me the runaround. Just give me one quick second.
Yeah, and if we have any other questions about any of the other topics, or if we want to talk about anything for upcoming, Tricia, do we want to maybe talk about what we're looking for the workshop topics, or is that more executive committee?
Correct. I'm going to drop off before executive session, but John Phipps will help with that discussion to talk about the Q4 workshop stuff. So yeah, I think it's just this, and then it's just kind of for everybody that as soon as this meeting ends, we'll cut right over to executive session. We'll start it a little bit early.
We've got the numbers for the voting. Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if we can't get the slides to come up, you can actually just verbally share the results, and then we can repost the slides.
Yeah, I could do it that way too. What do you think? How's it going there?
I'll have them up in just one quick second.
Okay, no problem. So our next meeting is going to be coming up on the 21st, and I can open it up for public comment now, since that's going to be the section after this. You can raise your hand and we can call on you at any time. So this is anybody that submitted their votes verbally. We did submit them into the survey, so we have them here. And then can I get presenter results or go to the next slide? So we got a total of 28, and then we had one more. We do have 29, but they don't change the results. Okay, so this is out of the 28 votes, 78% were for Chris Stanford. So he will be our next chair. And for the next slide, so you got 22 of the 28 votes. Next slide. And Ashley got 75% of the votes. So that will be our next vice chair. Next slide. So 21 of the 28 votes. So I thought it would be good just to see all the numbers across. And I think this is the last slide here. Thank you so much for bringing that up too, Silas.
Okay, so and Chris Hoffman and I, we were chatting on the side, and Ashley, it looks like, and Chris Stanford were not able to attend the meeting today. So what we'll plan to do is a transition, I think, at the Q4 meeting, kind of for chair, vice chair, getting together, turning over, talking about, kind of where we want to go with the Oversight Committee in 2025. And then I think officially we'll start the terms for the new chair, vice chair in 2025 at the Q1 meeting, unless anyone else, has any thoughts on that. The other thing too, we might want to consider, I know we've got to go through our annual review on the charter between now and the Q4 meeting. We may want to propose changes for the decisional voting rules. I think the survey process actually worked pretty well. So everyone, I guess, kind of think about it. If you've got a reason why we would not want to move in that direction, let us know. But it seems to be a little bit more efficient than going through the roll call live at the meeting. So we may at least add it to the decisional voting rules as an option to leverage a survey. So I think that's all that I have, Delana.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining. That's also all I have, and we had no other hands raised. Okay, I'll be, let's start the next session in about 5 to 10 minutes. Let me get that going. Thank you everybody for joining.
Thanks, Elena.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you to all of our speakers, and thank you all in the audience for joining us today. With that, the call is concluded, and you may now disconnect.